Hi troops, welcome to another TNT. Let's see, it's Thursday, the 9th of May. Starting off with some good news. This relates to a story of a missing man, a Scotsman in Phuket. Apparently, missing British father, 65, is found alive days after disappearing in Thailand during solo retirement holiday and sending desperate family odd messages. That pretty much spells out the whole story. This, by the way, reported by the dailymail.co.uk. Says a British father who disappeared during a solo retirement holiday in Thailand last week has been found. David Goldthorpe, 65, from Edinburgh, was expected to return home on Sunday until police revealed he'd never boarded his flight from Phuket to Doha. Relatives described receiving some odd messages and then silence before David vanished in appeals for information on Facebook. Apparently, David had flown out on April the 12th, stayed at a hotel in Bangkok for a week before travelling to Phuket. He'd not been in touch since last Wednesday around 3:30am their time. But a spokesperson from the Foreign Office told Mail Online that they were supporting a British national in Thailand and were in contact with the family without providing any further details. So still a bit of mystery. There's no further information in that story, but the good news is that the man's been found. Now, another story in Phuket, this reported in Cowsod English on their Facebook page. It says immigration officials in Phuket were contacted on Wednesday by a relative of an Australian man named Mr. Duncan requesting urgent assistance. The relative was concerned that Mr. Duncan might be in danger of harming himself. Immigration officials promptly searched their information database, found the hotel where Mr. Duncan was staying in Patong Katu district, and when the relatives arrived at the hotel, they found Mr. Duncan unconscious after overdosing on sleeping pills, and they were able to provide timely assistance, rushed him to hospital. Currently, his condition has improved. He's out of danger. So I suppose they're at least a good example of why immigration does need to know where foreigners are in Thailand. In that case, it may have saved the gentleman's life. Now to an update on a story. We spoke yesterday about the new public health minister who was sort of wavering and wishy-washy about his attitude to cannabis as this new cannabis bill is being written before it gets put to Parliament. Bit of an update on that, and this has been published by cowsodenglish.com. Thailand PM wants to outlaw cannabis 2 years after it was decriminalised. Now, the situation's also been reported in Associated Press about the Prime Minister's, apparent determination to both recriminalise cannabis and try to prevent its recreational use. Let's see if we can find out more. It says the Prime Minister wants to outlaw the drug again amid concerns that the lack of regulation has made it available to children and increased crimes. And he's asked the Health Ministry to amend its list of narcotics to again include cannabis, to issue new rules to allow for its medical purposes only. And he's also sort of asking them to suppress criminal activities linked to the illegal drug trade, demanding to see progress within 90 days. Now, after cannabis was decriminalised in 2022, it was initially said that it would be allowed only for medicinal use, but in practice the market was unregulated. It's prompted public backlash and concerns over misuse and crime. And in the 2023 elections, all major parties, including Phumjai Thai, promised to restrict cannabis for medical use. Now, that statement may come to a surprise to some people, but all the way along, the Public Health Minister has said that he only really decriminalised cannabis so it could be used for medicinal use. But as the story says, in practice, that's sort of not what happened. And cannabis advocates and entrepreneurs have opposed a radical rollback, which they claimed would be damaging to the economy. Legal cannabis, so the story says, has fueled Thailand's tourism and farming sectors and spawned thousands of cannabis retails, ranging from shops, trucks to market stalls all over the country. I think the estimate is for some 6,000 or so shops. Here we go for a bit more information to the Thai PBS World story that says Thai government to reclassify cannabis as a narcotic, and in a reversal of the previous administration's policy to decriminalise cannabis and hemp, the Thai-led government has decided to reclassify cannabis as a Category 5 narcotic with the exception of medical and health uses. And pretty much repeating the other story, the Public Health Ministry was instructed by the PM to amend its ministerial regulations to include cannabis on the list of Category 5 narcotics to be completed for enforcement within this year. There is an exception for the controlled use of cannabis for medical and health purposes, but not for recreational use. And the story goes on, this reversal of policy is a slap in the face for the Phumjai Thai Party, one of the government's coalition partners, which prompted decriminalisation of cannabis and hemp as its flagship policy during the Prayut administration, leading to widespread cultivation of cannabis and the emergence of many cannabis retail outlets. So a few things to look at here. Firstly is what's going to happen on the street. Now, you got these 6,000 or so stores. Are we suddenly going to find a whole lot of doctors working at these stores, signing off prescriptions for medicinal use of cannabis? I don't think that's going to necessarily work in all cases, and if it's going to be a popular solution, they're going to have to pay for another qualified staff member. At the same time, I can't see the government going around and just closing 6,000 stores. So what's going to happen in practice? And the other reality is the political reality. And as I've said all along, this has been a political story from day one. It's had nothing to do with the liberalisation of drug laws in Thailand. It's been purely about doing deals to maintain government, in the case of the Phumjai Thai giving their 61 votes to the Prayut government so they could stay running the country. Now we've got the Phumjai Thai party in coalition with Pheu Thai and a few other parties. I wouldn't put it past the Prime Minister to say, well, Phumjai Thai, if you don't want to vote with us, if you're going to threaten us, we'll say goodbye to you and we'll take on the Move Forward party as a coalition. Something like that could happen. So the political dimensions of this are probably just as important as what might be happening out on the streets. But that's the latest, as far as we know it today, on this putting together of a cannabis bill. But it looks like a cannabis will be restricted to medicinal use only. And with thanks to our sponsor, 5-Star Marine at 5starmarinephuket.com. A beautiful day again. They are predicting a little bit of rain later down this part of the world. And we will be checking on whether the rain up north might have cleared the air a bit. What's happened with the PM 2.5, we'll be checking that later on in the program. But to a sad story, this reported in thepatianews.com. And a fatal coach accident in Lampang, that's up in northern Thailand. Driver killed, Chinese tourists injured after crash into trees. And police received a fatal accident report of a coach carrying 33 Chinese tourists crashing into roadside trees in Lampang. And they found the coach in severe condition, interesting terminology, and the coach driver, publicly identified as the 31-year-old, was found dead, and 2 Chinese passengers suffered serious injuries, 31 others suffered minor injuries, and the coach had picked up the Chinese tourists from Phang in Chiang Mai to travel to Bangkok. It was assumed by the police the driver may have fatigued and dozed off, causing the coach to lose control and collide with roadside trees. Yeah, certainly the coach there in severe condition, but a driver killed, 2 Chinese severely injured, a bad bus crash here in Thailand. Now let's head to Phuket and one of the tourists that were there last week. And the Bangkok Post reporting that Thaksin met with Malaysia's Anwar. Now Anwar is the Malaysian Prime Minister. So were they getting together? I mean, obviously they've been in political circles over the last couple of decades, having a cup of tea, reminiscing on the good old days. Or were they talking about things more serious? Well, according to the Bangkok Post, paroled former PM Thaksin Shinawatra met the Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim during his trip to Phuket last week. The topics under discussion are believed to have included the unrest in the Deep South as well as the fighting in Myanmar. And Thaksin, who's unofficially the de facto leader of the ruling Thai party, arrived in Phuket on April 29th, left on May the 2nd. He claimed the trip was a private leisure trip. But the sources said the southern unrest was believed to be among the topics under discussion because Mr Anwar has been keen to act as a mediator in peace talks between Thailand and southern insurgent groups since the Prayut Chan-o-cha government was in power. Now, you'd imagine that the current Prime Minister, Thaksin, would be looking at these stories today going, ugh, who's running the country? And moreover, the fighting in Myanmar was also discussed during the meeting. According to this story, Mr Anwar previously urged Thailand to get more involved in efforts to address the conflict. And Thaksin's earlier meetings with representatives of resistance groups during his trip to Chiang Mai on April 13 also fueled speculation that Thaksin and Mr Anwar may have discussed the situation. Well, it may be that privately the Prime Minister has said, hey, Thaksin, you know these people, would you go and have a chat to them and see if you can find out what's going on? But I would have thought the new Foreign Minister would be involved in these discussions. Let's find out. Mr Maris, this is the new Foreign Minister, did not deny the meetings occurred. He said it was an internal matter for the Myanmar government and the Thai government was not involved. Well, of course the Thai government's involved. I mean, they've got 2,500 kilometres of border with Myanmar. They've got people walking across the border every day trying to get out of that basket case country. Of course, it's a very big topic for Thailand. More on this story. VOA, this is Voice of America, Myanmar, citing sources close to Thaksin, reported on Monday that Thaksin met representatives of the Kachin National Organisation and the National Unity Government to try to solve the armed conflict against the ruling junta. I wouldn't have thought that Thaksin's sitting down having a cup of tea with these people talking about the current durian crop. And he's talking to one of the major splinter groups and the former government, the former elected government representatives in Myanmar. Why is he doing this? The story says this was followed by another meeting with the leader of the Shan State Reconstruction Council and the Shan State Army, according to VOA Myanmar. The informal meetings took place after armed ethnic groups seized Myawaddy, a key trading post with Thailand opposite Mae Sot district in Tak. Now, according to an independent academic, it was Thaksin who sent his representatives to make an appointment with these groups for talks which took place during Thaksin's recent trip to Chiang Mai. And Thaksin's talks with rebel groups were a move to restore his reputation and boost the popularity of Thai and its leader Pattongtarn, according to a lecturer at Rangsit University. However, Thaksin's move could create problems if it's not in sync with the Foreign Affairs Ministry approach. And Rangsaman Rome, a Move Forward Party MP who chairs a House Committee on State Security and Border Affairs, said Thaksin does not hold any government office and his move could cause confusion about Thailand's role in the Myanmar conflict. Of course, the other way of looking at this is that, well, does it really matter who's doing the talking as long as there is some resolution and some sort of peace? Has the government sanctioned Thaksin to quietly go about these talks? Or is Thaksin unilaterally just deciding, well, I'm the former Prime Minister, I think I'll go and have a chat and see what I can do? So interesting to see exactly what might be happening either formally or informally with this former inmate. Now, speaking of inmates, and this is a flow on from those protests during the COVID pandemic, when anti-government and, well, I suppose anti-monarchist groups were protesting quite a lot around the capital. Calcite English on their Facebook page reporting that the criminal court yesterday handed a 3-year prison sentence in absentia to Monarchy Reform Movement co-leader Mike. We just sort of knew him as Mike, a young man, for defaming the monarchy and violating the Computer Crimes Act, and will issue an arrest warrant as he failed to show up to hear his sentence. And the court said the crime was committed on Facebook back in December 2020. The court added the page has over 90,000 followers. The sentence was reduced from 4 years as Mike was cooperative during the trial. So a young student with an opinion, he didn't do anything violent, given a 3-year sentence in jail. So anybody who thinks that the government's perhaps going a little bit softer on people with a pro-democracy or anti-monarchy point of view, you'd be wrong. Exactly where Mike is or what's going to be happening with that sentence, well, we'll just have to wait. A story from a few days ago where there were suggestions in a world report that there were 250,000 sex workers in Thailand. Now, the story had total numbers of sex workers, so I think it was topped off with China, but then again, China's got the largest population in the world. So I was saying to people, well, what about per capita? That probably is a more meaningful number. Well, somebody did the calculations. So thanks to Eric Blair. I'm thinking that's probably not his photo, but here we go. Here you go, Tim. Based on the calculation of sex workers per capita, using the latest population data and the numbers from the IUSW report, here's the ranking of the top 8 countries from highest to lowest sex workers per capita. And the Philippines has 711 sex workers per 100,000 people. Germany second, 480 sex workers per 100,000 people. Mexico's next with 380. Thailand, number 4 in the world, with 357 sex workers per 100,000 people. Then China, USA, India and Brazil. And Brazil with 116 sex workers per 100,000 people. So, Eric, thank you very much for doing the calculations, things we need to know. So the Philippines have the highest number of sex workers per capita in the world, according to the IUSW and Eric. And with that, hopefully you're a bit more up to date with things happening around Thailand. Please subscribe to the channel. Take a look at the website for our sponsor, 5-Star Marine at 5starmarinephuket.com. Thanks for watching today. It's going to be the last day of the working week tomorrow. We've got our live Saturday show, then Grumpy Old Men on Sunday. Thanks for watching.